Welcome to Module 1 of the unit on reading.
I'm Gayatri Raman.
I'm Sheba Victor.
Together we shall guide you through this unit, which has 4 modules. Please download worksheet 1 and keep it ready. It's available along with the module script. It has both learning tasks and activities for you to practice what we learn in this module.
Let's begin with 2 of my favorite quotes related to reading. Reading is to the mind what exercise is to the body. And the second one, the man who does not read good books has no advantage over the man who cannot read them.
I can see why you like these 2 quotes. Many don't realize how language learning is a cognitive ability and do not consider including mental activities in their effort to become fluent and adept users of the language.
While the ability to speak is important, I cannot emphasize enough of the impact on reading, not only for language development, but on the person as a whole. That is why I agree with Mark Twain that when we do not read good books, we remain unschooled, untaught, and even illiterate.
I think the first thing to do is to simply ask ourselves, why do we read?
Yes, we read for information, we read for enlightenment, we read for recreation and survival.
These purposes are not really linear or isolated. Something that we read for recreation could prove to be extremely uplifting to help us through a difficult phase in our life.
Exactly. Some content that is purely a fact and filled with information can help us at a time when we most really need it. And what is termed as reading for information can be reading for survival.
Exactly. Let's then take a quick look at this text. In his memoir, Between a Rock and a Hard Place, Aron Ralston, 26, is on a solo hike deep in the Canyon Islands National Park of Utah in the American West. A loose boulder sends him tumbling into a deep crevice and pins his right arm to the canyon wall. Wedged in place, it will not budge no matter what he tries. He didn't tell anyone where he was hiking, so Aron knows his chances for rescue are nil as he chronicles his ordeal in a video diary on the camera he carried in his backpack. Finally, after 5 days, he decides he must cut off his arm in order to escape. All he has is a dull camping knife, but he manages the grueling amputation, drags himself out of his rocky prison, and hikes out to safety.
All right. Is this text giving us information or is it about survival?
Well, I think it's about both.
Yes. While that gives us information about a person's ordeal and how he copes in a crisis, it inspires us. Yes, in fact, the film 127 Hours is based on this true life account.
I see. So what we are saying then is that a fact-based non-fiction account can be uplifting, and therefore a single text can be a combination of information, enlightenment, and perhaps even lend itself to survival. Let's then discuss the benefits of reading, because I'm told they are innumerable.
But we can enumerate them. Reading is very, very good for you. Research says that reading improves brain connectivity. It helps you empathize with people, gain perspectives. It reduces stress. It helps you fight depression. It leads to a longer life. and helps in cognition in so many ways.
In addition to helping us improve as people, I believe, and this is what we are more concerned with in this unit, that reading has a tremendous impact on our language development. It increases vocabulary, leads to the mastery of structures, helps in language acquisition, improves early reading success, and for us as students, it increases our chances of long-term academic success.
Now that we know the various purposes for which we read, complete task 1.1 and match the text with its purpose.
Having done that, let's get back to basics. What do we read? We read a variety of texts, but they can be categorized under three main groups. Those that we read for information, such as newspapers, magazines, pamphlets. Those that we read for pleasure, like novels and short stories, poems or comics. And those that we read for survival, like recipes, notices, prescriptions. As we can see, there's so much content that we encounter in the printed medium. This content can be roughly categorized into 5. In other words, there are generally 4 or 5 types that we read.
We begin with what you already are familiar with in Unit 1. In the first module on speaking and listening, Madhumita mentions narrations and descriptions.
You are now going to read 2 different kinds of texts. In the first one, the writer provides us with an experience. What is the title? What do you think you are going to read about?
The puppy. One day, I waited in vain for them to arrive. It was the first time in 3 months that the small family didn't pay me a visit. The same continued for 3 days, and I was slowly giving up hope of seeing them ever. On the 4th morning, as I went out for my morning walk, I sensed someone following me. It was not a good feeling. I started walking faster, but the soft footsteps behind me picked up pace too. It was a lonely bylane, which was a few kilometers away from my home. Suddenly, I could hear a familiar growl that came from a nearby bush. As I rushed towards the sound, I cried out in relief. It was one of the puppies, and she started barking at the stranger who was behind me. Fortunately, the man walked away and never looked back. Till today, I don't know if he was following me or was it just my imagination. But after the incident, that small little puppy became an inseparable part of my life.
What kind of text was it? What did it talk about?
It's a narrative text, as it tells us about a puppy and the protection it provided through the writer. It speaks of an event, it tells us a story.
And a very cute one at that. So here's a quick tip. Always note titles, subtitles, and subheadings. It prepares us to read attentively and for what is to come in the text. After reading the narrative account, do take a look at the text on Coorg. What kind of text is it and what is it trying to do? Coorg is a landlocked district in the state of Karnataka, officially known as Kodagu. The district is spread over an area of 4,102 square kilometers. Area-wise, Coorg is bigger than Goa. Most of the area in Coorg is hilly and covered with forests and plantations, coffee plantations being the most visible part of Coorg. Only Kushalnagar town and the area around it is in the plains. The rest of Coorg is mountainous with hills and valleys crisscrossing the landscape. Coorg has an average elevation of around 3,000 to 5,000 feet above sea level. It is rich in biodiversity and is a fragile ecosystem.
How different is this text from the puppy text? Is there an event or an experience?
I don't think so. I think it's a descriptive text.
So we've looked at two texts. And as you can see, in a narrative, there is a story or a tale, an account of a series of related events or experience. That could be non-fictional or fictional. A descriptive statement, as in the Coorg text, is a piece of writing that tells what something or someone is like.
Now, dear students, you are going to read a few more texts, but these are different from the ones you read earlier. Read this text on the camera. What kind of text is it?
This text is about how to take a photograph. When a text tells you how to do something, it is an instructive text.
Very different from that text is another one about an everyday beverage, tea. Try to find out whether it is a mere description or does the writer have a more specific purpose.
So students, read the text on tea.
What does the writer want you to believe?
I think they're trying to tell us that tea is good for us and that we should consume a lot of it.
When a text like this wants the reader or you to do something, it is a persuasive text. It gives you reasons or persuades or convinces you. Finally, dear students, read this last text on art and try to determine the nature of this text. this is neither a story nor does it persuade you. So, students, what does it do?
It just tells you about African art, and therefore it is an informative text.
So, let us quickly summarize. We have a variety of texts, descriptive texts that tell us about characters, events or places,
A narrative text that tells us a story,
instructive texts that give us directions or how to do something,
a persuasive text that convinces you about something,
and finally, informative texts that give us information.
Now, go to the worksheet 1, task 1.2, where you've been given different texts. Students, you've been given guidelines. Now, try to name the text types and their purposes.
Now that we are acquainted with the text types, it is necessary to understand how we read and negotiate meaning. While not getting into too much of theory, what is to be noted is that there are different ways in which we read.
Now, when you talk about ways of reading, you mean the time spent on each text
Yes,
and the attention you pay to a given text.
precisely. We do not read every text in the same way. The text type and the reason and the purpose determine the way we read.
Yes, I think when I read a novel leisurely, I read to understand the plot, I try to understand the characters and gain perspectives.
When I read the directions on a bottle of face cream, for example, I read it quickly to find out how it is to be used. Do I have to apply it directly? Should I wet my face? Do I need to lather it? And then apply it. So I read it slightly differently.
When I look at train fares or an air route, I quickly look for the easiest route and, of course, the most economic fare.
Definitely. So this means that we keep altering our speed and the intensity with which we read.
Yes. So we read quickly to get the gist of a text.
Or skimming, as it is called.
We read to locate specific information from a large volume of information.
That is scanning, if I'm correct.
Yes. And we read carefully and intensely.
We read information that is not specifically stated.
So these are the different ways in which we read.
In other words, a good reader is one who reads different kinds of texts, each in a different way, depending on the purpose.
Yes, actually, I like this definition of reading. If we say that a student is good at comprehension, we mean that they can read accurately and efficiently so as to get the maximum information from a text with minimum of misunderstanding.
There is a more expansive list. A good reader is one who reads explicitly stated information and understands it. Someone who understands information when it is not explicitly stated, deduces the meaning and use of unfamiliar lexical items or words, and understands relations within the sentence.
A good reader also can identify the main point or important information in a piece of text. A good reader can separate the main point from an example or illustration. A good reader can transfer information from the form of a text into a chart, table or graph, or can critically reflect on views presented in a text.
I'm sure our students would be delighted to know that we'll be dealing with all of these in the modules to come. But for now, we've reached the end of module 1. In this module, we've learned about how to read and why we read. We've learned about the importance of reading. We've also learned about different kinds of texts and the different ways in which we read, or as we know it, the sub-skills of reading.
Yes.
So dear students, do complete all the tasks in your worksheet. We will see you soon in Module 2.
Enjoy reading.